Today we're visiting with Delphine Jewell. Delphine was born and raised in Enid, Oklahoma. That's her hometown. That's where she did her early education. And when it came time for her to pick her career, she decided upon nursing. Well, nursing career took her to many different places, and a couple of those places, which were kind of exotic and exciting, were Nigeria and Zimbabwe, where she worked. But a lot of her professional career was in nursing education. Delphine moved to Epworth Villa in 2002. Since she's been here at Epworth Villa, she's been in a lot of roles. She's done a lot of volunteer activities, and she's had many leadership roles. Delphine, tell us about your early years in Enid, growing up, and siblings, and just life in general during that time.
Well, I was born and raised in Enid, Oklahoma, as you say, and I only weighed 3.5 pounds when I was born, and in that day and time, most babies didn't live when they were that small, but the doctors gave up on me, but my mother didn't, and I was really grateful for that, that she stayed right in there and kept me alive. My father was a very hard-working man. He was involved in the oil transport business and a part-time farmer. And we were poor, but I didn't know it. And I think, most everybody was. Many of us were during that day and time, during the Depression. I grew up in a family of 2 sisters and 1 brother. And then when I was 16 years old, my mother died, and I was the baby of the family, so I was the only child left at home at that time. So I went to live with my older sister, who lived in Augusta, Kansas. So I ended up going to Enid High School for the first 11 years of my education, and then I went to Augusta, Kansas, and ended up graduating from there, having gone there just 1 year. And then after I graduated from high school in Augusta, Kansas, I came back to Enid and got my first job at Enid News and Eagle as a ad taker and a switchboard operator.
What determined your decision for the field of nursing?
Well, that's kind of a long story also. When I lived in Enid and I was working, of course we didn't have any money. I didn't have any money, and so I kept at my job with the idea in the back of my head that I'd always wanted to be a nurse. And as a young child, I even wanted to go to Africa, and I think I must have read too many National Geographic magazines, but I always had that in the back of my head. And because of not having any money, I just kind of dismissed going to college and nursing school and so forth. But then I was very active in the church there in Enid, and it was the Evangelical United Brethren Church, which makes Methodism United Methodists, because we united with that denomination. And that church, when I really felt like that I was being called to the mission field and to go to Africa, or to go wherever the Lord had in mind for me, and in the back of my mind thinking Africa, that the church decided that they would sponsor my education. And so they paid my way through college and nursing school. And I went to college at Westmar College in Lamars, Iowa, which is a very small denominational college. And went there 3 years, and then to 3 years of nursing school at Bryan Memorial Hospital in Lincoln, Nebraska. And with those 6 years in total, then I got my Bachelor of Arts degree in religion, and then, of course, my registered nurse at that time.
So what made you want to specialize in the field of maternal newborn nursing?
Well, that's another long story, which I'll try not to make too long. After I graduated from college and nursing school, then I was appointed by the Board of Missions of the Evangelical United Brethren Church to go to Nigeria, Africa. And as a part of my preparation for that, the mission board sent me to a place to get my nurse midwifery. And this was the Frontier Nursing Service, which is in the Appalachian Mountains of Kentucky. And I spent a year there. And that is another story unto itself also. This organization at one time was known as Nurses on Horseback. And by the time I got there, they quit riding horses, but our transportation was in Jeeps. And that's how I learned how to drive. So I learned how to drive in the mountains of Kentucky in a Jeep. I think I gave a few people a heart attack, but I did learn how to drive. And so I really hadn't thought about a specialty until I went to the Frontier Nursing Service and became a certified nurse midwife.
Well, tell us then a little bit about your nursing career, your experiences, the locations, and your teaching.
Okay. Well, after I finished my nurse midwifery, then I was commissioned as a missionary of the Evangelical United Brethren Church, and I was sent to England. So I sailed away to England on the Queen Mary, and it took me 6 days to get there. The thing was that on the way, halfway there, I got a cablegram telling me that my father had died. So that was a real dilemma, to be in the middle of the ocean going in the wrong direction at that point in time. But I went on to England. My family didn't expect me to get back home for my father's funeral. So I went on and went to this school called the School of Missionary Medicine, which was just a lot of different kinds of things. I learned about how to care for eye problems, infections mainly, and I took some dentistry and those kinds of things. But I was there for 6 months. I lived in London 6 months before I went to England. So then it came time for me to leave there and go to Nigeria, and I went by ship, left from Liverpool, England, and it took me 13 days to get from England to Nigeria. And so it was quite a trip, but it was a good trip. So then I went to a place called Bamboor, which was a bush hospital and it was a mission of the Evangelical United Brethren Church. There were 2 other nurses and 1 doctor that was there. And I was the only nurse midwife, so I ended up doing most of the deliveries of the babies, and I was in charge of surgery. And in a place like that, you know, you can't expect to specialize. You do whatever there is to do, and you kind of get involved in most everything.
So you did do some surgeries, actually. And how many babies did you deliver?
I don't really know. I didn't keep count. So many people asked me that. I delivered at least 40, I think, while I was in Kentucky. And, you know, I would guess that altogether I probably have delivered, you know, over 100 babies. But I really didn't keep count.
Do you ever wonder and think about how where all those children what they ended up?
I do. In Kentucky, there were a couple that were named after me, so they thought that was such a flowery name, I guess. So they named their children after me, and I do wonder about them.
So when you returned from Nigeria, I think you did some teaching. Is that
well, yes. When I came back from Nigeria, then I went on to the University of Colorado and got my master's degree and got involved in nursing education. And I was involved in nursing education for about 23 years. And I was employed by several different institutions there. I was at Enid St. Mary's Hospital at their School of Nursing for about 6 years. And then I went to Sacred Heart College in Wichita, Kansas, and then I went to the University of Tulsa. And actually, the interesting thing was, in these last 3 schools, I was involved in developing new nursing programs. So I was 10 years in Tulsa, 8 years at the University of Tulsa, and then 2 years as the maternal newborn clinical specialist at Hillcrest Memorial Hospital in Tulsa. And I coordinated the development of the first birthing center in a hospital in Oklahoma at that point in time. Well, wait a minute, I left out one very important place of employment.
Okay.
And that was Northern Oklahoma College, which was my last professional employment here. And I was chair of the Division of Nursing there for 12 years. And then I retired from Northern Oklahoma College. Yes. And then God let me know that He wasn't finished with me yet. So I still had a lot of life and ability. So I was appointed by the United Methodist Church then to go to Zimbabwe. And there I was in charge of a nursing school.
Okay, well, what made you choose Epworth as your destination?
Actually, life care. Having never been married and not having any children, and just having a niece and her family as my significant others, I felt that I wanted to be involved in making the decisions about my life care. And also its connection with the United Methodist Church was very important to me also.
Have you received an honor or an award that you're especially
well, some of them were kind of trivial, but they were important to me. I was national president of the Nurses Association of the American College of OBGYN, and I also received some awards from my nursing program, received 2 of those, and was Oklahoma OBGYN nurse for the year at one point in time also.
Well, you've had a wonderful career and an exciting one, and certainly different. And I think probably you were very suited for that career. It seems to me, knowing you now, that you were. We've just celebrated our country's birthday. With your experience and wisdom, what's your advice to our future generation?
Well, to me, I think the most important thing is to love our neighbor to the point that we feel some sort of responsibility for their livelihood and for their life.
Delphine, thank you so much for sharing your story. It's been delightful, and we just appreciate your being here.
Thank you.